Thank you so much for being here. What promises to be a very exciting and dynamic 15 minutes on this subject. We'll hopefully dive deep enough. And maybe to get going, we'll set the scene that obviously there's a lot happening. You can see that at this event, globally as well, but in particular in the UAE and Abu Dhabi. If we think of the smart and autonomous vehicles industry cluster that's set up here in Abu Dhabi, where they're testing air, land and sea, drone capabilities and autonomous vehicle capabilities, it's quite an exciting time. I mean, perhaps, Dr. Paul, I can start with you. Are you able to paint a picture of the vision of what autonomous mobility can bring for us, in particular, a combination of where the technology and regulation and other things are at the moment?
Sorry.
I think that's yours.
Hello.
Yes.
Well, thanks for the question. And it's a giant question. So what's the vision? Well, look, as a species, as a civilization, we move a lot of stuff. And we move human atoms, and we move bread atoms, and we move rock atoms, and we move luggage around airports. We do all of that across a multitude of different vehicle types, doing different kinds of work. And so I view these networks as a place. It's the place you want to do work. It's the vehicle manufacturers. It's the software, and it's the owners and the operators to operate those fleets. And I think the thing that's often missed about these networks is that I failed my driving test 5 times, right? Maybe not such a great driver. And that was because I only had my own experience to drive with. But the vision really of connected systems and autonomy is that every autonomous vehicle gets the experience of every autonomous mile driven by every other vehicle ever. That's exactly the opposite of the way that humans do it. And that vision only comes because you have networked vehicles and vehicles that are driven off the cloud and have shared memories. Imagine if all of us as humans could share the bits of our memories that we wanted to about driving. So your last experience driving was available to me, and you got upskilled, I got upskilled, someone moving things around a port or in an airport or a bus through a city, and that all gets shared. And that is utterly extraordinary. And I think that's why software will dominate this field, because you can build, I believe, the windows of autonomy.
Thanks, Dr. Paul, for that. Taavi, if I come to you, I mean, obviously what Paul's described gives a lot of exciting benefits regarding safety and efficiency and other aspects of where the industry is going. I mean, what are your thoughts on what the vision is going to be like?
Well, I very much agree with Paul, and how I see it is that one of the mega trends of our time is technology developing faster and faster. And there are several tasks that we do every day that technology will either do better or make our life much more comfortable doing it themselves, like by technology, using technology to do that. This has happened throughout the ages, I would say, from Industrial Revolution until modern day. And driving, especially driving in slow speeds, driving in well-regulated areas, driving with relatively small vehicles on land is something where I would say that the machine is already better than human being. Thus, this is already happening. So we are not talking about something potentially happening in distant future, but as we are seeing right here in Yas Island, and we'll hopefully see much more as we heard from the opening statements today, there will be autonomous last mile explosively more present also in Abu Dhabi.
So your company makes the hardware, the vehicles, and Paul, your company makes the software, and you're saying software will dominate, and obviously the hardware is going to be very important. But what it seems to be the thing holding us back is more philosophical. It's more about ethics. It's more about where do humans fit into the equation. Who is responsible when things go wrong, but equally, who should own the benefits as well. Is this? I know you've been an engineer for decades now, or without giving away your age, but you've been wrestling with this for a long time, and obviously Taavi was a prime minister, and so politicians have had to look at this. But if you kind of come from the engineering point of view, where's ethics been in this discussion?
Okay, so I guess I've had the privilege of being an engineer all my life and the privilege of thinking about what engineers can do for society at the same time all my life. So one of my roles is I'm the CAV-CAM champion for the UK. And that's been advising government for about 10 years on what legal frameworks you can build, such that question of who's at fault when a bad things happen. And I'm delighted to say that there is now a law passing through the UK that I think can be exported on how you would manage that. How do you partition up where there is fault? In particular, how do you partition up how you can learn from that fault? Because if you have that framework, then you can develop against it, you can build businesses against it, you can be honest and transparent with the public about how this technology evolves. If there is a fault, you can explain the fault, you can use that same language to improve that fault. So I genuinely think it's not the ethical question that's in the way now. I sometimes think you could think about this problem as a whole series of numbers that you have to multiply together. And if any one of those numbers is 0, you get a 0 at the end. Right? But they all have to be non-zero. You can have some huge, extraordinary things. You can have amazing hardware, amazing software. But if you have a legal framework, then you multiply the whole thing by 0. And so I really feel now, looking across that whole landscape, there aren't many zeros. But if you don't have lots of businesses, sovereign states, sites, users, the public working together, then you're going to get a big 0 at the end. I don't think this can be done by one party. I think the states, the legal systems, the vehicle manufacturers, the software manufacturers, the insurers, they all have to come together. And I'm seeing that come. And I'm pathologically positive. I've spent my life building these kind of ecosystems, and now it's happening. I mean, look at this conference. Here it is.
Are you pathologically positive too?
Well, let me put it this way, that I think what we have managed to do already, both with software and hardware and sensor technology that is present in 2024, is that to make autonomous transport safer than human driving at slow speeds. And our challenge and task is not to hit anybody or anyone. So it can't be lethal or dangerous to anyone. We don't today make choices whom to hurt. Why? Because this is not our choice to make. Essentially, it could be like politicians' choice, but I'm not sure if the politicians are willing or even able to do that, because most of the ethical questions, they are not easier to solve when technology becomes better. So my point in this is that it still takes a lot of time before we solve the ethical questions, whom to save in potential accident. And until we solve that as a society or as societies, until then there will be still some sort of human involvement. It might be one safety operator being in charge of 10 vehicles. It might be, in some use cases, 5 vehicles. But there will be still somebody at a distance to be responsible and make sure that nothing dangerous happens.
And so we need the human aspect to remain in the equation, because the ethical dilemmas are so tricky.
Exactly, and the scale is not, or it's not like a binary decision. It's not like 0% autonomous versus 100% autonomous. We can make the vehicles, let's say, 95, 98% autonomous, and at edge cases, it depends very much which kind of traffic it is, of course, but at these edge cases, there still can be human involvement. And I believe that this is enough at this point. For the next foreseeable future, we don't take the human away completely, but with one human we can serve 10 times as many customers, maybe even more than 10 times as many.
And Paul's point about no one party can do this alone, I mean, does that include deciding the level of human involvement? Does that need to be a sort of global decision or a regional decision? How do you see the best approach to agreeing these things?
Well, idealist would say that there is like a global council that comes together and decides all the matters. In practice, we have, even in European Union, we have 27 different views on things. So, yeah, I mean, but what I think, speaking here in Abu Dhabi, where we see clear wish to be at the forefront of innovation, I could definitely say that those countries who figure it out first will be role models for others. So if a good law is passed here, all the world will look up to Abu Dhabi and see if they can copy or if they can take bits and pieces from here.
That's exciting to think that if a country sort of shows the way forward, that others will follow. But it seems in technology, there's always cultural aspects that come into play. The way things are approached in the US is very different from China, etc. Is that the same in this field? Do you feel that, Paul?
I think a really important thing is the skills agenda here as well. That really matters. So we're building a business that is designed to enable other people to build businesses with the technology in a way that fits with the culture of where they want to build it. That's really important. We don't want to say, oh, here it is, you must take that. We want to say, here is like the Lego set for autonomy. Here are different vehicle manufacturers you can work with. What business would you like to build? Much like, for example, Google Cloud allows you to construct your business using cloud technology, or AWS. We have exactly the same model that we want to, in the nations and the places that we work with, build those skills and say, okay, so you generate 10,000 jobs in this area. And I think that as an answer to the cultural thing there, because then there's ownership with the technology, with the people that want to profit and build a better society and help their citizens with it. I think that's really important to have that in the business plan.
And the connectivity, I mean, coming back to a point you made at the beginning, which was about sharing the experiences, the question mark of, can someone opt out? I mean, I think that comes back to it. It's sort of like, if you're forced to, if you want to drive somewhere, I mean, let's say something as basic as you just don't want anyone to know where you went yesterday.
Well, my answer to that's quite simple, in that these things work if they're insured, right? And I think the insurers will require an explainable system. Certainly in the UK, the regulator is going to require, at runtime, the vehicle to explain what it's doing and why. And that's really important, because you can then think of this as an engineering process, and say there was a near miss. The regulator can see it. It's transparent. It's easy. It can be explained. It uses proper language to do that, and that can be shared. So I think that the opt-out thing, that's with the insurers and the fleet owner operators and the nations that want to operate it. And no AV software company should say no to that, because it either is explainable or it isn't. So our view at Oxa is share all of that. Be completely transparent. We're not going to say how some of the detail works, but we are going to continually say, this is what the vehicle's doing, this is why it did it, what would you like to do about that? So I'm very positive around that as well. You've got to think about how you're going to do that in your business plan.
So I'll move on to something that's very much, both the risk and opportunity, which is around energy. And Taavi, I noticed that your fleet of vehicles includes some pioneering hydrogen, for example, and other options apart from just EVs. What's the energy equation looking like?
Well, firstly, I would say that it needs to be some sort of sustainable form. One of the challenges of our time is, of course, climate change, and being electric is number one. But whether it's battery electric or driven by something else to make electricity, like hydrogen, that's a different story. And what we see, especially in hot climate like here, a lot of energy goes to keeping the car cool inside, making it comfortable for the passengers. And in order to run the whole day, it actually might make sense to use hydrogen as a source. And we have built the first prototype that is capable of driving on hydrogen, and the test results are really, really good. So I think for last mile appliances, hydrogen could actually make a lot of sense.
Paul, I'll give you the last word on energy. What's the main takeaway for you?
I say this a lot. Driverless vehicle technology is the enabler and co-enabler of many things. If you can change the form factor of vehicles, and maybe some vehicles don't even need a person in it because they're doing delivery, you get to rethink how you build that vehicle. You get to rethink how that vehicle drives. You get to rethink its acceleration, deceleration profile. You may need the air conditioning. You can completely, if you don't have the human in it, you can rethink the vehicle form factor. And if you're rethinking the vehicle form factor, what its shape is and how it's powered and how it's operated, of course, energy is at the heart of that. Energy, new ways to move. As a species, we move a ton of stuff, and it's all about to change.
Well, thank you all for being here for this very dynamic and engaging discussion. Please join me in thanking both Taavi and Paul for their time and their insights. Thank you so much.